Alright, here we go. North Georgia Hillbilly back. Going to be showing how I rig the 8-inch Hudd. A lot of people do it different ways, and I know, they all catch fish. I've used some real jackleg ways that worked, and they just weren't pretty, and I wouldn't necessarily trust them in the long run, but they worked when you got to make it happen. But either way, this is the way I figured out. It's just Butch Brown rig, just slightly modified. It's worked for me. It's worked up to 13.5 pound fish that it held up fine. No signs of strain or anything. So I personally got confidence in it, and main reason I like it, it's easier. You don't need a whole lot of the equipment, um, and you also, I've just got a lot of confidence in braid in general, as far as just overall strength goes. So basically, what you're going to need for this is you are going to need a little bit of super glue. Not necessary, but I use it anyway. I use 50-pound braid. You could use something heavier. Obviously, 50-pound braids work fine for me. I like to use low profile. I've seen people use up to like 120-pound braid, but you're talking about a bulky thing there. So I like the 50. It's low profile. This is Power Pro, so it's a dark color, which blends well with the top of most of the baits. For hooks, I'm using Gamakatsu size 2 round bends. They got a little bit more bend to them than an owner, which I like personally. They also, like the VMCs that Butch uses, you've got a flat top here, which which just lets it lay lower profile. I'm using just these El Cheapo cutters here. Not the best by any means, but they work to cut the one thing. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this right below the barb. So we're gonna have a real long piece left over here, but I cut that right there, and at least attempt to, let's see, cut it off right there, right below the barb. And that gives me, there we go, that gives me a long bend right there. What I'm going to do is take and straighten that out. Use these just needle nose. Straighten that out. One thing about these is, with them being some sort of bronze or something, especially that high carbon steel, they're not going to snap, which if you've tried to bend out a bunch of those owners, you know they're going to snap. So I bend it and just essentially try to get a right angle. As the hole in your foam from where you insert it in the Hudd starts growing bigger, you might want to bend this in more, some more of an angle, and it'll hold a little bit better. But either way, that works. You don't want, one thing I will stress is, you don't want your hook to stick too hard into your bait. Lost the biggest fish of my life. Saw him freaking out. It shook the bait because the hook stayed stuck in the bait, and he had the whole bait to leverage. So you definitely want it to break free. But you can just get a feel for that. So basically, where I'm going is about, you can see 3/4 of an inch from the top of this dorsal fin. I just poke it in, and as you can see, that flat shank right there lets it just lay real flat. So what I'm doing, and here we go. This is for Henry. I don't know if anybody else will ever see this, but here we go, Henry. You take your braid, put it through your hook eye, and then looking at the top of the bait, you thread from the left to the right, and then you've got right through once. Come back down to the hook eye, put it up through the hook eye, and do the exact same thing from the left to the right. So what we've got here is we've got 3 strands of braid. If you can see that. Oh, let's see, I'll let you see it. 3 strands of braid. 1 tag coming out the front, 1 tab coming out the back at the hook eye. So what I do is I just kind of line it up, get it. Doesn't have to be very tight for your first one right here, but either way, as you can see, I've got my 3. I pass it underneath all 3, and then I just go. So now I've got this big loop with it passed underneath. There we go. I pass it through the loop and tighten it down. Anybody that went to the Boy Scouts, there you go. There's just a plain old half hitch. This is still on the back now. I'll run a second time under. Second time under. And pull it up. And that gives me 2. Now 1 it'll slip, 2 you've tightened it down. Now I end up doing 15 of these half hitches on each end. You can see here on this one that's already been done, you can see the long little knot that's going on right there. Same thing on this side with the 3 strands loose in the middle. But so I've got this back end secured, still loose up top. So I pull it tight, and you'll see it put an indentation in the top of the base, so it's real tight. I'll run it up underneath again. This can be tricky, keeping it tight, but being able to get it underneath. But keeping it tight is pretty key because you've already made your hole in the bait. Disconnect that there, push it there. Okay. Okay. So I've got it there. We'll do the exact same thing. Run it through the loop. Get 1 half hitch. Do it again. And I've got 2 half hitches. And at this point it's secured. At this point you can pull the hook out and loosen it. So there we go. You've got 2 half hitches on each end. And I bet you that it would probably be secure enough at this point to where you could fish it. But what I end up doing is I go, and just like I was doing before, I go underneath and then pass it through, go underneath and then pass it through my loop, and then pull it down tight. Boom. Now I've got 3. I keep doing that up until I've got 15. At that point it looks like, and I don't think you'll be able to see it on this, probably not, maybe you can, I don't know, but either way the knots, the half hitches running up the line look like a spiral. So I keep running that up, and at the end I've got 2 spiral knots of 15 half hitches on each one. At that point I take a little bit of super glue. This isn't done, so I take a little bit of super glue and hit the ends of each, not the back, just the ends where the knot's been cut flush. I hit the ends with 1 tiny drop just to saturate that braid there. And like I said, not necessarily by any means, but it'll either way it keeps that knot from being able to loosen. Now I'm going to go real quick into why I'm using rate of fall zeros. Rate of fall zeros used to float. They're supposed to float. However, I don't know if it was QC or what it was, but either way they started sinking, as we all know. And I like that. I like to be able to fish them really slow, whether I want to fish them high or just let them sink, so really slow and fish the bottom. Either way. So, but since all these floated, I bought 6 and 5 of them floated. So what I did, and you can kind of see in this one that's a little bit deformed. So you can see a little bow right here. And what I did here was I got Bass Pro Shops tungsten nail weights, and I think they were 1/16 of an ounce a piece. And I ended up having to put 6 into this zero to get it to sink at the rate I wanted to. And each one will be different. This guy only took 2, and it sank at the rate I wanted it to. But either way, the tungstens are lower profile. They get up in there. They're smaller, so you don't get this big deformed bait. And I found I wanted to put all the weight here in the front, just like rate of fall 5 or whatever, be added to the harness. That way you get the proper fall rate. But either way, that's why I'm using zeros, and that's how I get them to sink if they are floating. But either way, like I said, this isn't this isn't the best way. I'm not claiming that. It's just the way I do it and what I feel comfortable with. I think fishing, especially swim baiting, it's a lot like golf. Confidence is key. If you're not confident in something, you're not going to throw it. Or when you get a bite, you're going to question, is that a bite? What is that? So either way, that's the way I do it. It's worked out for me. Hope it helps. Give it a try. Just figure out what you like. These I've been retying these relatively often, but you know I'll go a trip or two without retying it. Haven't had any problems, but not saying that problems might not arise. But it's just what's worked for me, and hope it helps.